Inside Winston Cup Racing, a weekly 30-minute look at the men and machines that make up the world's most popular motorsport. With your hosts, Ned Jarrett and Steve Burns.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Inside Winston Cup Racing. We're at the Atlanta International Raceway, and Steve, it's not supposed to be this cold in Atlanta.
No, it's not, and it's also hard to believe it's the last event of the year. We'll have highlights of the Atlanta Journal 500 and a lot more for you on today's program.
This week on Inside Winston Cup Racing, you'll see all the highlights from the Atlanta Journal 500, the final Winston Cup event for 1987.
You'll also meet Rick Hendrick, a millionaire businessman, owner of 4 Winston Cup teams, and race car driver. You'll see his Winston Cup debut.
And we'll explain the point system in this week's NASCAR Notebook, all of that and more. Steve, that's a lot of miles for one driver to run on one racetrack.
Now, there are those who think that Richard's past his prime, but he's had some very strong runs this year.
He has. He's been at the racing game for a long, long time, and he ran good in the Atlanta Journal 500. This has been sort of one of his better super speedways over the years, excepting Daytona. And a lot of people thought that this race might not be too good since the championship was already settled before they came here. How wrong they were. Mark Allen has the highlights.
Pole sitter Bill Elliott was trying to become only the second driver in 28 fall Atlanta races to win from the pole. However, most of the field was out to snap a season-long victory drought. 33 laps in, rookie Ed Pim's spin applied the sledgehammer to the winless years of 83 Lake Speed and 29 Cale Yarborough, both contenders before the wreck. Cale himself nearly flame-broiled before bailing out of his Hardy's Olds. The rest of the day was torture for most of the top 10 drivers looking to capture more than $750,000 in Winston bonus money that national champion Dale Earnhardt left on the table. Ken Schrader blew, but still claimed 10th in the points because of Neil Bonnet's absence. Terry Labonte hung on to 3rd despite having his flywheel disintegrate on lap 203. Darrell Waltrip's hopes of moving past Labonte foiled by a lengthy pit road stay for distributor problems. Richard Petty fell 2 positions to 8th when he lost control of his Pontiac in turn 4. Hard luck Jeff Bodine's slim title hopes mangled beyond repair, along with Rick Wilson. Petty's victory drought now more than 3 years old. Bodine's frustration almost too much to control after a brutally unlucky year. This pit road tangle with Greg Sachs cost Kyle Petty a lap and $10,000 in bonus money to 6th place points finisher Ricky Rudd. Rudd finished the 500 miles a respectable 3rd. Negotiating safely through harm's way were Elliott, Earnhardt, and 28 Davey Allison. But the latter lost a lap on an unlucky pit stop in the late going, leaving Elliott with his makeshift pit crew and Earnhardt to fight it out. In the final laps, the red Ford ran away to a comfortable 13-second win, Elliott's 6th of a great season by any measure. He also clinches 2nd in the points, worth an extra $225,000 at the awards banquet in New York in 2 weeks.
Ned, before we get into the mailbox segment, we need to thank our viewers for writing in. We're getting between 200 and 300 letters a week, and just because your letter may not be used on the air, we do read each and every one of them.
And of course, a lot of the questions are one and the same, and so we try to answer as many of them as we possibly can. And our first one today comes from Wanda Bayless of Evington, Virginia, who writes, if a car gets torn up badly in qualifying, how is that driver able to race the next day? Do the drivers have 2 cars? Well, Wanda, for that answer, we'll go to Ricky Rudd, who has had such a situation of that in the past.
Thanks, Wanda, for writing in. Really sort of a difficult question. It really depends on the circumstance. You know, if you go out and you crash the car and it's beyond repair, then you'll go back to the truck and get a second car. Most all these teams carry a second car in their hauler, and within about a matter of an hour's time can have that car ready to be on the racetrack and running. But a lot of times when you do that, you sacrifice, I think, qualifying position, so you probably have to start that car at the rear of the field. But the biggest thing is, if you got a car that's not banged up too badly, a lot of time it's your best car for that track, and you'd rather run that car. So this depends on how bad the damage is.
Wanda, most of the top teams have at least 7 to 10 race cars in their stable, so it's not hard for them to take 2 to a racetrack.
Of course, Ned, some of the independent teams may only have 1, 2, or 3 cars.
Yeah.
Now, our second question today comes from Gary Williams of Florence, South Carolina. And Gary writes, please explain what is meant when a car is said to be loose or pushing. Well, Gary, for that answer, we'll go to Sterling Marlin, the driver of the Piedmont Airlines Oldsmobile.
Well, Gary, thanks for the question. You've probably seen a few races on TV, and it's when a car is loose, that's when the back end of the car jumps out from under it and takes off the wall. And when one's pushing, you just go in the corner and the front end just goes on the wall, and you can't turn the car. And myself, personally, I'd rather have one a little loose than pushing, because pushing just scrubs off a bunch of speed. But if it's too loose, it's hard to drive too. So thanks for the question.
If your question is used on an upcoming segment of Inside Winston Cup Racing, you will receive this Timex Speed Track speed computer. This quality engineered computer has a 5-lap memory and can instantly calculate lap time and speed. In addition, we'll send you one of these beautiful style auto racing jackets. Write today to Inside Winston Cup Racing, Post Office Box 240417, Charlotte, North Carolina 28224. And thanks again for writing.
We need to take a short break. When we come back, we'll have a story on Rick Hendrick, who's one of the top car owners on the NASCAR Winston Cup circuit. He drove in a race recently, and we'll have that story.
And then a little bit later on, we'll explain the Winston Cup point system. We've had an awful lot of letters about how it works, and it is a little bit complicated, so we'll have that and more. Stay with us.
Charlotte, North Carolina businessman Rick Hendrick is the top car owner on the NASCAR Winston Cup circuit, at least as far as the number of teams he owns, which is 4. He is also involved in IMSA road racing, drag racing, and boat racing, so he has a lot going on in motorsports.
And he's been around racing his entire life. He and his dad worked on cars together when he was young. I had to wonder, why would a guy who has all of that going for him want to enter a Winston Cup event?
You know, if you've got the guts to do it, go do it, you know.
That philosophy sums up Rick Hendrick's attitude towards life as a whole. And it's that very same outlook that led him into Winston Cup racing as a car owner to begin with.
Nothing motivates me any more than someone telling me I can't do it. And believe you, plenty of people told me I couldn't do it. I had people with Chevrolet tell me, you don't know what you're getting into. It's a big time, big league racing. You've got to be on the inside. You've got to have all this experience. You've got to know the right people. And that's true, knowing the right people, but being able to identify talent in any kind of business or racing. Seeing, you know, just recognizing good quality people and getting them to work together. And you know, it's been a challenge, and it's a challenge every day. It's that competitiveness. It's the challenge. It's someone saying, here it is, see what you can do with it. And our people are that way. They say, well, let's go do it. Let's go for it. You know, life's exciting. Let's try something different. You know, let's see if we can make it happen again. Because it's really someone saying, okay, you did it over here. Can you do it over there?
There was a much more important reason for Rick Hendrick to try and qualify for the Winston Western 500 at Riverside than just a good time.
This gives me a good insight into what's going on in the sport, you know, between the crew chief and the driver and the crew. And it means something to them. I've never seen our guys. I'm closer to my teams than I've ever been since I'm driving. And I think it's going to help me a lot in working with them.
Rick had no problem making the race, qualifying 21st, ahead of experienced racers like Morgan Shepherd, Joe Ruttman, and Davey Allison.
Now, when a guy beats me and he laughs about it, then I really get fired up. And I mean, the competition is what makes me click.
Rick Hendrick may appear to be a win-at-all-costs, go-for-the-throat individual, but the truth is, Rick Hendrick doesn't have many enemies, if any. He drives fancy boats and arrives at business appointments by way of Learjet. But showing off is not his style. He doesn't do or buy anything unless he has a good reason or a good opportunity.
They got some nice looking used cars out here.
Rick Hendrick has been dramatically successful at almost everything he's ever attempted, but he's always wanted to race in a Winston Cup event, and the opportunity finally presented itself.
We had this car sitting around, and all of the crew they really enjoy it, and I really enjoy being out here with them, you know, during the week and, you know, eating hot dogs and hamburgers behind the truck, and just really being one of the guys. You know, I always wanted to drive, and I drove boats and drag cars and go-karts, and I raced all of my life, but, you know, this is kind of the top deal, and, you know, we came out here, and I said, guys, if we can just make the field, we'll be doing good for me with the experience I have, but we're really running pretty good. We're satisfied, and hopefully we'll get in the race and get some more experience and have some fun.
1987 has not been a very fun year for Rick Hendrick's racing operation. Darrell Waltrip has won just once. Tim Richmond has won twice, but has temporarily retired for health reasons. Benny Parsons is winless, and so is Jeff Bodine.
I would rather try to work with my people and motivate my people. Let's do it together than stand back with with the iron hand and beat on people. That doesn't get anything done. So I guess I am aggressive. I'm motivated to win. I'm very competitive, but also my philosophy is if you do the best you can, then we just come back and try to do it next week again. I want to stay out of trouble, get some good experience, try to be there at the end, and then if I'm strong enough and my car's good enough, then race some people right there at the end. I don't want to get out here and abuse the car and just run it in the ground early and then not have anything for the end of the race. So I guess that's going to be my strategy. Just set a pace. I think all my guys have told me, drivers and crew chiefs, just set a pace that you're comfortable with and don't worry about the competition. And then when it gets down to it at the end and the track's slippery and everybody's tires are soft and the brakes are gone, and then see who's there to race.
Unfortunately, Rick Hendrick wouldn't be there at the end. Several flat tires and a broken bell housing sent Hendrick to the sidelines early. But the afternoon was far from a total loss. Although he failed to achieve his goal of finishing the race, he was successful in gaining a lot of insight.
The only way I knew I had a flat tire was the car was sideways going down the straightaway, so I knew I had a problem. But the car gets loose, and you don't know whether it's oil or speedy dry. So I've seen Jeff and him come in and say, we got a flat, which side, I don't know. So now I know there's no way to know.
Rick Hendrick will likely try a few Winston Cup events next year. He was bitten by the racing bug as a young boy and will never lose his desire to race anything fast. Mostly, though, he'll continue to build his business empire, calmly, quietly, and as just one of the guys.
I don't like a lot of attention. I just like to go to the race and stay in the pits. I don't go party. I'm a racer. I am a racer.
See, the fact that he is a racer helps to make him so well accepted in the sport and well respected.
And Ned, he is also one of the top 3 auto dealers in the United States, and as if he's not busy enough, he's also a part owner of the new NBA team that's coming to Charlotte in 1988.
So he's a sports fan. We need to take a break. When we come back, we'll have the NASCAR notebook, which deals with the point system.
And we'll also have the latest news, so stay with us.
It's a great company. It's great to be a part of racing.
At Winston Cup Racing, we'll have an in-depth look at the 1987 season.
We'll also look at the amazing success of 1987 Winston Cup champion Dale Earnhardt.
We'll also have an analysis of the rest of the Winston Cup season, a year of surprises. Ned, to determine the Winston Cup champion, points are awarded, and it's kind of a complicated point system because drivers receive varying amounts of points in any given event.
They do, and it has changed several times over the years. When I was driving race cars, the points were based on the amount of prize money that was involved in each event. In fact, you had to earn 30 to 40,000 points a year if you were going to be the champion. Now it's just over 4,000 that the champion earns. So let's bring you up to date on how the system stacks up today.
its inception in 1949, NASCAR has been an organization in constant change. At the beginning of each season, there seems to have been some kind of addition or subtraction to the rule book. Points have always been awarded in some form or another to determine the champion, but the system by which they are handed out has undergone many facelifts over the years. The search for the best way to distribute points has been a long one for NASCAR. In the past, systems were based on the number of laps run in a race, others by the amount of prize money offered. These methods made certain events more valuable than others, and the degree of consistency was low. So in 1974, NASCAR adopted a plan that has worked longer than any other. Presently, NASCAR and Winston distribute points in 5 parts. A driver finishing first in a race receives 175 points. The remaining drivers through 5th position take 5 points less for each spot. Positions 6 through 10 have a difference of 4 points between them, and a 10th place driver receiving 134 points. Then the gap between spots 11 through 44 is only 3 points. In a 40-car field, the driver finishing last receives a mere 43 points, a far cry from first place. Bonus points are also awarded to the drivers for leading a race. 5 points are given to a driver for taking the lead once, and 5 more if he can lead the most laps all day. A driver who can win and stay up front will receive a total of 185 points. Now, just what is the incentive to chase all these points? Well, not only prestige and pretty girls, but a very large sum of money as well. Together with track promoters and operators, Winston has put up the largest motorsport point fund in the world, a staggering $2 million. To begin with, the driver leading the points at mid-season will pocket $150,000, with the 10th place driver receiving $10,000. The total midway payoff is a healthy $500,000. But the mother load comes at the end of the season when the Winston Cup champion takes home the top prize of $400,000. The runner-up receives $225,000, and the remaining prize money is then sifted throughout the other top 20 drivers. So the need to place at least in the top 20 is great because Winston pays nothing for finishing 21st, and dropping just 1 position could cost as much as $175,000. The idea behind this system was to encourage more teams to run the entire schedule and to run hard in every race. And with the huge pot of gold at the end of the year, it's no surprise that they do. So if you've ever wondered why a driver would wait 200 laps to get back into a race and chase points, remember that points and positions equals big bucks.
And now for the news. Mike Waltrip and the Bahari race team will have a new sponsor on their new Pontiacs in 1988. Waltrip talks about it.
Country Time Lemonade announced today that they're going to sponsor our car for the next 3 years, and All Pro Auto Parts will remain as an associate on the car. And Bahari Racing is getting just stronger and stronger. Mike Beam is going to remain as the crew chief, and we're really happy with the job he's done for us. And this will just enable us to continue this building process. And in '88, maybe do some of our own motors in the shop and try to get some more power for the car. And that's the main goal, try to get a little bit stronger race car, faster race car.
Ed Pym of Dublin, Ohio, has thrown his hat in the ring to run for Rookie of the Year honors in 1988. He will drive for Curb Motorsports with Sunoco as the sponsor.
What Sunoco will allow us to do is build a full NASCAR participation where we will be able to run every race.
What are your expectations for 1988?
We want to win Rookie of the Year with Ed Pym, our driver.
Another personnel change in the Kenny Bernstein Quaker State team. Eddie Lanier, who headed up their engine department, has left to take a research and development position with the Richard Childers team, which builds cars for Winston Cup champion Dale Earnhardt. The Bernstein team is in the process of moving their engine facilities from Charlotte, North Carolina to Travelers Rest, South Carolina, where the team is headquartered. Doug Richard has been released as crew chief on the Buddy Baker Oldsmobile. Personality conflicts with other employees was given as the reason. Richard has been talking to several other teams about a position. The most sought-after ride on the NASCAR Busch Grand National Circuit has been filled. Larry Pollard got the nod to drive the potent Thomas Brothers Country Ham car next year. Pollard, the son-in-law of Winston Cup driver Harry Gant, won his first Busch Series race this year in the Hubert Hensley entry. Well, our time's up for today. Hope you enjoyed the show, and you be sure to be with us here next week.
And let's remind you, just because this is the last event of the year doesn't mean it's our last show, because we're going to continue on showing you all the new teams and the testing.
So we'll be right here. You be too.
They really did the job. They worked hard. One time there, it looked like we had a bad stop, but it wasn't really. It was that Cale, whenever he had his accident, he got caught in the middle of the pit road. Dale was pitting ahead of that, and he was able to stop, and I had to go on down pit road and wait on that just an instant before I could get in the pits, and that's when Dale gained some time on me. But the rest of the pit stops were just super.
What about you? How determined were you based on winning that race for those crew members who were hurt?
Well, the biggest thing I was concerned with was trying to hang on to second points. You know, I knew Labonte was going to run good, and I knew if I fell out early that my hopes were gone. I wanted to lead early, and I was able to do that. It looked like Earnhardt came and fought back hard there toward the middle of the race. So did Davey Allison. But it seemed like the longer my car ran, the better it got, and that's really what won me this race.
Well, what happened after that last caution? You said, see ya, and you checked out.
Well, I don't know if I got that much better or Dale. You know, Dale was off and on most of the days. At times he'd run really well, and other times it didn't seem like he was that good. And, you know, that last set of tires was just super good on my car, and I was able to take on off. This is for you, Chuck. Get well soon. We want to see you back in Georgia.
The following companies have paid a promotional fee to Inside Winston Cup Racing. Inside Winston Cup Racing's jackets and outerwear provided by Style Auto, the nation's premier source of fast lane fashions. Style Auto, the champion choice for the style of your life. Inside Winston Cup Racing's mobile hospitality suite. This beautiful 34-foot Pace Aero motorhome provided by Fleetwood Enterprises.